We want to turn now to Hartford Public Schools, where attendance, or lack of it, is causing some real concern. Superintendent Dr. Leslie Torres-Rodriguez is joining us now to talk about what's being done to get kids back into the classroom. Dr. Torres-Rodriguez, thank you for being with us. This is a big issue. Our Hartford Bureau Chief, Aya Galal, did a story about this, and some of her numbers are just staggering. 45% of students chronically absent. Is that as alarming to you as it is to us?
Absolutely, it is alarming. And, before the pandemic, I had declared chronic absenteeism a crisis in Hartford. Winter of 2018, I recall calling the entire community, having a conversation about chronic absenteeism and the challenges, because we can look across a continuum and know that there are barriers that contribute to chronic absenteeism: illness, whether it's chronic or acute, lack of health, mental health, vision, dental care, trauma, family responsibilities. There are also negative experiences that students might have that impact to absenteeism, whether it's a student is struggling academically or socially. There's lack of engagement, whether the student is missing those meaningful, deep relationships with adults in schools, or the student doesn't feel that there are strong ties to their peers. And then there are also misconceptions about whether that it's okay perhaps for a student to miss 1 or 2 days a month. That is not accurate. That this notion of sporadic attendance isn't a problem. And so we have to address it from multiple angles, because it is not a linear causality, if you will.
Well, tell us about what you're doing, because there's some great things happening, and you talk about that, the connection with the student, and a lot of this seems like it's designed to have student buy-in. You have the attendance Olympics, right? Attendance March Madness coming up. The idea is to get the kids engaged?
Yes, and to tackle it from what we call multiple levels. So, those district-wide, school-wide activities are aiming to build relationships first and foremost between students and their teachers, and then between the school and the family. Also to create awareness, right? Having not only the student, but the family aware of the impact that students that miss school, especially students that are chronically absent, that tends to lead to lower rates of reading proficiency, for example, or of course less engagement and almost a connection to their staying on track to graduate high school. So we want our families and our students to be aware of that. And then, of course, there's nothing wrong with friendly competition within school and across schools. And then we go up a tier, a higher level, where those are students that are already chronically absent, are nearing or at the cusp of becoming chronically absent. And we know that there are other root causes. And so, we collaborate not only with social workers, but with our community partners, so that we can begin to identify those additional resources that the student or the family might need: mentoring, supports, tutorial support. At times, mental health, wellness for the entire family is necessary.
I know the definition is 10% or more of school missed is the chronic absenteeism definition. Does it go throughout all grade levels? I think if you just went up to someone maybe who doesn't have a kid and said, chronic absenteeism, they're thinking a high school kid skipping school and, playing in the park or something, but it's across all levels, right?
Absolutely. Chronic absenteeism. I mean, if I look at my numbers now, and this has always been a trend across all grades, but there are two specific grades that are always a challenge for us: kindergarten and ninth grade. And if you think about what happens throughout those years in the student's experience, those are big transition years, right? Kindergarten, there's another level of experience for the student developmentally and socially. And then again, right, when the student transitions from middle to high school. And so those tend to be our highest peaks. And then we begin to kind of lessen lower as the grades progress. And, this is why it's so important to look at it from different angles, because I remind our community that a 5-year-old cannot get to school on their own. Right, there is a system of supports that are necessary, and the same thing for a ninth grader. Right, if a ninth grader, for example, is not coming to school, they are somewhere. And one of the things we found during the pandemic is that, for example, they were at work. They needed to work to support their family, and that has become a different conversation for us. How do we, allow students to experience that sense of efficacy that they experienced when they were working during the pandemic in our schools as well?
Well, certainly when you go from kindergarten to ninth grade and beyond, it is certainly a wide range. We said you got the attendance Olympics, attendance March Madness coming up. I think we're all going to be waiting to hope that you have some good news for us next time you're on, that it's working. Obviously, you can reach those kids if they're in your schools. Dr. Leslie Torres-Rodriguez, the superintendent of Hartford Public Schools, thank you so much for being with us here on this Sunday morning.
Thank you for having me.